Okay, so in this video, I'm just going to do a recap of kind of our class period, really short, just kind of intro to where the graph editor is, because I want you to start using it and be aware of it. In the beginning, you're trying to start just pressing S over here and moving keyframes around, but you can really get detailed with the graph editor, and it's important to understand the layout of it so you can see each object basically for its attribute. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little sphere here. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you go to the animation tab, you can see it. Now you have this graph editor down here above the timeline. I don't really like to work like this. I just like to use it in another floating window because I use two monitors. So if you like that and you just want to open it up in another window, you can go over to your window, animation graph editor. Now it kind of opens up in a floating window. But I might actually do that for this because I'm can only use one screen here. Let's see if I can dock it in here. Oh, I'll just close out. You can do that, or you can just go over to the animation tab. There we go. So what I'm going to do here is just create a few keyframes on here so you can kind of see what's going on. And this is object here. I'm going to go to the side view. So I'm going to work with frames 1 through 24. Let's go 1 through 50. So I'm going to create a keyframe there. This is where the polls start. This is its first jump. And there we go. So now we've got something going on here. You notice whenever I did that, it created this this curve system down there. And let me get out of this because I think it's going to screw me up. So I'd like to expand it so everyone can see it. So what is this right here? This is basically the visual interpretation, Maya's visual interpretation of forward motion. In other words, you have your timeline still. If you notice my timeline scrolling there, you'll see where your keyframes are. You created your keyframes. They're little dots right there. They move from one to another. Make sure these things are non-weighted before I get into this. Okay, cool. I have a value expressed on my geometry. If you notice, it's moving up and it's also moving forward on the z-axis, so it moves up on the y-axis. So I have two values of motion right there. So in other words, I'm going to get two curves and the rest is going to lie straight. And the biggest thing about this is you can go over here and these are all your attributes over here, in other words. So you can hone in on this. So I moved it up in the translate. It's moving its highest in the Y, which is my forward, my top, my bouncing up. So if I were just to click that, now I can kind of basically manipulate just this curve in general. So if I mess with any kind of, you can like left click and select this and move it down, up, how high you want it to go, how high the value you want it to change. You'll just be affecting this translation right here. Now, if you had both of these and you were selecting both of these right there, now I'm actually moving the translation Y up, and I'm also moving the motion forward too, which I don't really want to do. I just want to select the one because now it's actually going to go at a higher rate, which is kind of cool. So let's just take it back to the translate Y and look at this right here. I need it to go all the way down. Okay, a little rule of thumb, the higher the curve, the less motion. So in other words, if I scoot this over to frame 2, you're going to have less motion there and a slower motion for the in frame, in other words. which is, you know, kind of how a roller coaster would probably fly. The ways it kind of went straight up and just slowly down. You can change that. Boom. And it's automatically going to collect these, or correct you and create like a little keyframe time right there, because you've actually moved it there. Now your value is still set over here for the other value, translate Z. That's why there's still a keyframe there. If I were to delete that, ups and falls. There we go. So every time you go moving these around, it's going to start creating these new little keyframes down here, these red marks, however you want to do it. So with this ball going up and down, and like we did in the ball bouncing tutorials I have, you know, there's a number of different these are called tangents here, by the way. They have little Bezier handles on here. You can kind of select them and kind of move them a little bit like this. Let me just run this. You can move them all the way down up like that, so you get some really odd stuff going on there. You're kind of limited to how you can kind of move the tangent in that state, but that's what these selections up here are for. I'll show you. So you have all these different tangent states up here, and if you kind of scroll over to kind of talk about what they are. The linear tangent, that is going to be take the actual curve, the smoothness out of everything. So what if we change this to a linear tangent? Now you have a straight line. So that is very mechanical. There's no ramp in speed. There's no slow down speed. That works for some things. I don't think it's working for this little curve action here, so I'm going to go back to smooth it out. There we go. Now if I take and move these, arch these like I did with my ball bouncing tutorial, kind of see I really need to get a flatter curve here to get more hang time in the air, because now I got a quick motion up and then it kind of hangs and it's going to kind of slowly fall down. So if I were to take away this keyframe here, I've taken away my distance, so I've just got my ball bounce. So I've got the hang time and it kind of starts to come down. It's really what you want to do with it. So another thing is you can, let me back that up, or actually I want to show you a step tangent, because it really comes in handy, especially with camera movement. I'm going to move him over here, keyframe him again. So let me select all of my guys here. This step tangent right here. So now it's basically taken away all the in-betweens. So basically if you run the timeline, it appears there, where your key poses were. This is really good for like camera movement, I think. You know, a lot of students and stuff will try to dolly the camera around following the object, you know, or like create different cameras for different shots. You can actually kind of key your camera in on your different shots in your timeline here with the same camera if you just step frame it. So that's what I like to use it for, and that's why I like to show it. Get back to step. Now one last thing I'll show you is the break tangent, and I believe I did that in the bouncing ball tutorial, but if I had a keyframe here where it bounced back up, another keyframe, how could I go about breaking? I've got my translate Y, breaking this so I could actually adjust this right here. Break this tangent here. So now you have two separate handles. Gotta give them that nice smooth curve. Need to break that one there. I do want to scoot that one over a little bit. Straight line tangent too is another one. Flatten tangent. So if you've got this tangent here all cattywampus, and you want to flatten it out even like that. Gonna move it up. You see it's kind of fast, but boing boing. Now, I'm sorry, the last thing I want to talk about is weighted versus non-weighted tangent, and you'll hear that term. By default, you're going to be on a non-weighted tangent, and what that means basically is you can adjust, you can only adjust these two, like the length between these two. The best interpretation I have for it, I have a tangents are non-weighted by default, which means they're locked and you cannot only change their angle, not their length. So if you want to adjust the length, actually put motion in between there, you can adjust the weighted tangent that way. So let's do that. And I'll put this link below. It's a little hard to understand, like what would you need it for, but let's see, we want to switch that one to now. You can actually kind of like move this in out. See the way I'm pushing more actual line out. The visual, the green line out is actually adding to it, so it actually is making it longer compared to the weighted tangent, the non-weighted. Let's see what that would do. Oh yeah, it's creating a lot there. Let's switch it back to weighted or non-weighted. There you go. So now I can adjust it. So you can find some uses for it. Like I said, by default it's going to be on non-weighted, so you don't really have to worry about it being too accessible at first. Like you'll be like move it around and you'll be limited, but there are a bunch of selections up here that you can kind of experiment and really start determining. But the biggest takeaway I want you to take away from this tutorial basically is how to open up the graph editor. Note that all of these attributes here are related to all these attributes over here, and if you wanted to adjust just one of them, you could go over here and just select it over here, or you can kind of go over here and visually see that. You could kind of move. Let me go to the scale. Let's adjust the scale on this thing, see what happens. I don't think it'll do anything because I've actually got to scale it physically. Oh, it does there. See the way it kind of squashed a little bit? I'll move the other one too. There we go. So the graph editor is a really good workflow and really good way to pay attention of it, and a really good way to start defining some of your keyframes what you've got going on. We'll get into some of this pre-infinity, post-infinity cycles later on when we're doing some of the walk cycles and stuff, but those are really useful too. That's basically like looping over animations, helpful for that, and be able to see like negative of your timeline, the infinity curves. Basically, if you've got a curve going like up and down, up and down, up and down, you just want to kind of be able to visually see it and then make the object kind of do that. You can't do that with the curves, with the post-infinity and stuff like that. So, but yeah, this is kind of a brief overview to what we kind of covered in class. So I just wanted to put it out there. So thanks for watching, everybody.